What you just listened to is called Bite the Bullet by Jorge McCain. It's a pretty crazy concert band piece, wind ensemble piece that has a lot to offer in terms of orchestration. Today I'm going to be talking about three of the things that I find interesting in his writing, particularly outlining chords and brass writing, chordal planning for modulation, and harp writing. To start off, I think when we're talking about outlining chords and brass writing, the first time I personally have learned about this technique is from this guy named Charlie Rosen with 8-Bit Big Band. He writes a lot of Broadway-type jazz music. Here, I'll just let him talk about it himself first, and I'll get more into how Jorge uses it in his writing.
That serves as like kind of the overture for this whole thing. This is classic Broadway. Take the main theme from the show, play it like over the dominant, like over 5, and then move up a minor third and another minor third. That's like, I think, Broadway overture move 101. That's that intro fanfare.
Now, obviously, Jorge isn't really doing exactly that here. But if we look at it more in detail, it's, I think, a concept that can be applied in other ways other than just going up minor thirds and outlining diminished chords. I think this can be done to outline other types of chords. For instance, Jorge begins this section by starting on an A flat chord, A flat major 7, then goes, after 2 bars, goes to an E major 7, and then 2 bars later goes down to a D flat or C sharp, and then a bar after that he goes to A, and then after that he goes to F sharp. I think that this concept is applied similarly to how Charlie was explaining it, except instead of outlining a diminished chord, he's outlining an F sharp minor 9 chord. So that's kind of interesting. I'm going to play it again, but this time listen for the bass notes and how they work around those chords. You could also argue that it's not really F sharp minor 9, it's more, because of the following chord being a D chord, it could be more of like a D major 9 with the sharp 11 on top. For purposes of me explaining this next bit, I'm going to separate that just so it doesn't get confused with the past part. This D chord is interesting because it is the flat 2 of the C sharp minor chord, I think, which sounds as the tonic. And then that goes into the C chord here, with, I guess, with some sharp 11 stuff. There's some 9s and things, I think. And it's interesting because it's going from D to C sharp to C natural, kind of chromatically planing down these chords, which I guess is technically not chromatic planing since it's a C sharp minor chord, not a C sharp major chord. But it's just moving by half steps, which isn't something that you see super often. I don't know if I'd call this D major 7 chord Phrygian, as in like C sharp minor, the flat 2 chord would be D major 7, but it's just a thing that I see used a lot. I guess you could say it's borrowing from the Phrygian mode, so once it moves on to that C major chord, kind of like that major 7 relationship of that C sharp minor, sounds really interesting in my opinion. I think the fact that these chords are outlined in the brass is vital to the orchestration, because you wouldn't get that same sort of quality if it was outlined in anything else, in my opinion. In fact, I don't even know if this would be possible in any other kind of orchestration with the same effect. Anyways, I'd like to look at the harp part and its own for a bit, because I want to get better at writing for harp, and I think that it's a really good study in how to write for harp. To start off with, I think that writing for pedalings and knowing when to write which pedalings has been something that I've taken way too long getting good at, and I think this is a good piece to look at for how that all works in a digested, simplified manner. I think Jorge's basic rule is that if there's more than 4 pedal changes, then he writes in an entirely new diagram. But if there's not, he just writes the letters straight up. Going in the future, I think I'm just going to do this approach because it seems the most simplified to me. I might decrease it down to 2 pedalings because it just seems like a lot for 4, but maybe that's the standard. So I'm going to assume 4 for now. Jorge also writes a lot of information between the staves of this part. For example, this right here, and a lot of these pedal diagrams, which is something I've always written on top, which I think I'm going to start doing in the middle in the future. The last thing I want to talk about is this thing that he does when he writes for harp, which I think I might take into consideration when writing for harp myself, which is when he has a lot of these glisses, he does this thing where he has this, like, I guess it's supposed to be unmetric sort of indication of what notes to play in the gliss primarily. I think what he's doing is he's writing 6 tuplets in his notation program and then making the 6 invisible, or like making certain quarter note rests and stuff invisible so that it's not super metronomic and is more of an indicator about where the gliss is going. However, I could be wrong about what the importance of this is. Anyways, that's all I got for this piece. Thanks for tuning in.